Vic, welcome to SABC News Channel. Thank you indeed for joining us, and thanks for accepting this invite. I know short notice, but those news coming in thick and fast for us motorheads. What do we make of it? Forget the $7 million. I think the tunnel, well, that will be possibly their biggest, as I said, as far as the fine is concerned, the limit of their tunnel preparations. Other than that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. You are right. It's short notice, but in Formula One and in motorsport, things happen at in very short intervals. I think your assessment is 100% spot on. I don't think that the monetary fine is really an issue. I mean, these teams work in hundreds of millions of dollars, so a $7 million fine within the 30-day period is not really substantive to their reduction. What would have been sort of substantive if they had a $7 million reduction in their cost cap for next season. But again, that is also not on the cards. I think the reality is that the reduction in wind tunnel time, that is going to be quite substantial. You've seen this year throughout the year that these rules are in a very sort of raw state, so they're very every team is bringing performance nearly at every single race. You know, they all talk about small parts, they talk about major upgrades, they talk about minor upgrades, but believe you me, every single upgrade brings performance to the cars. So if Red Bull now have this 10% reduction of wind tunnel time, that will definitely reduce their development through the season. Yeah. So I think that if you look at the opportunity, if you look at all the other teams around the paddock, I think it's almost a compromised situation from the FIA. Let's give them a monetary fine, but let's try and also give them a wind tunnel reduction fine, which will probably try and keep the other teams a little bit happier. I don't think it's probably far enough. However, remember, in this accepted breach agreement, Red Bull do not have the opportunity to appeal this fine. So if they go away after the Mexican Grand Prix, think about it in the cold light of day, and they say, you know, maybe we should fight it because we think that it's possible to try and find an alternate solution, or maybe we can get away with it. They are not allowed to appeal it once they've signed it. I think it will make a material effect on them. Whether it's enough for Ferrari, Red Bull, and the other guys to catch them, I'm not 100% sure.
Here's a question, though, Vic. AlphaTauri, their sister, team. Could they just take notes from them? Could they just say, look, let's share some of your findings?
I think the reality is the possibility always exists. However, the architecture of the cars, which is the aerodynamic concept, and that's not only what we see on top of the car, what happens underneath the car, the actual floor. The floor is really the key to these new regulations. And I think it's going to be very hard for Red Bull to ask AlphaTauri to sacrifice some of their season, do a few runs for them, and then bring information back to Red Bull Racing. I don't know if you can cast your mind back. I think it was in 2008 when Sebastian Vettel won for that time Scuderia Toro Rosso in Monza. At that stage, the Toro Rosso, which is AlphaTauri now, and Red Bull Racing ran essentially the same chassis, but different engines. I think it was a Renault engine and a Ferrari engine. But in these types of regulations, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Red Bull Racing to get benefit out of AlphaTauri. And if you think about it, why would AlphaTauri want to give up their possible opportunity to move up the Constructors' Championship? So
it's the money, Vic.
Possibility exists, but I don't think realistically that it will happen.
Yeah, indeed. But look, the 2021 season, whether we like it or not, let's leave 2022 for now. The 2021 season, especially following this outcome, will always go down as possibly the worst the FIA has been, in as far as whether you call it credibility. I mean, they've also just reversed the Fernando Alonso finding after stripping him of that 7th place finish. The FIA are not doing themselves any good either.
I think the question comes in this way. If we look at a cricket match or a soccer match, what players want and what teams want is they want consistent decisions. So they want to know that when an offside is called, they're going to call it in the same way every single time, and it's repeatable. Whether it's 100% right or 100% wrong, it doesn't matter as long as there's consistency. And similarly in cricket, if you get an LBW decision, is that sort of methodology going to be handed out to all batsmen from both teams? So it does not change in a motorsport or a Formula One environment. When the race director and when the stewards are making decisions and they hand out penalties, it just needs to be consistent. I agree with you. It was one of the most fractious Formula One championships the world has ever seen. However, if you look back and you cast your mind, Senna and Prost, if you cast your mind to Schumacher and Villeneuve, Schumacher and Hakkinen, Schumacher and Damon Hill. So, these type of things happen. All what we wanted as Formula One fans is we wanted a fair championship, and we wanted a championship to go down to the last race. There were the Lewis Hamilton fans, there were the Max Verstappen fans, but we just wanted great racing. We had a great season up until that point.
Yeah.
Sure, Max was making a few errors and brake tested Lewis, but you know what? Hey, all's fair in this type of game, and Lewis can handle himself. Believe you me, Lewis is the best driver the world has ever seen in terms of Formula One. He's able to handle himself out on track. He just wants consistency. And if you look at this year, after the Michael Massey incidents of last year, the FIA has put in measures where the slight change occurred. They had two race directors that were alternating at various points in time. So there were issues of slight inconsistencies with decisions out of race direction.
Yeah.
That has now changed from the last race. The two race director rule has been changed. It's now a single race director for the rest of the year. And remember, the FIA has changed management, leadership, personnel from last year to this year. And so it's, again, we got to give them the chance. We got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And hopefully we can see that this type of thing improves going forward. That's all we want to see. We want to see a great championship down to the last race, last lap, last corner. That's generally what we as race fans want.
Vic, we're running out of time, but I've got to bring in Formula E coming down to Cape Town here in South Africa. Looking forward to that, of course.
Absolutely. It's the first time Formula E is coming to the African continent. It's also an FIA World Championship, second only to Formula One. Nick de Vries, who essentially is now going to drive for AlphaTauri next year, comes out of Formula E. He's an ex-Formula E World Champion. So yes, believe you me, the cars are different technology, green technology, electric cars, electric power units, but I think that the driving, the on-track action, it's really a short, sharp day with brilliant action, and I cannot encourage enough people to try and make the trip to go and watch that race. It's going to be awesome.
Short, sharp day. We're still looking for that short, sharp day out in Kyalami. I know there's talk of, bidding again. How far are we there?
Look, there's a lot of hoops to get through to get this. Obviously, you're alluding to a Formula One Grand Prix on the African continent. And I think there's a lot of people that are trying to push for it. There's a lot of meeting of minds. We had a few hurdles to try and overcome in the last couple of months. But I think what you got to really understand is that there's a huge push to essentially try and get this thing done. And you guys will be the first to know when we've got news to hand out. Vic
Maharaj, Motorsport South Africa Sporting Services Manager. Thank you indeed for joining us. Much appreciated. Always a pleasure speaking motorsports. Thank you very much there, Vic. As you heard, the fine $7 million, drop in the ocean as far as what the budgets for these teams are concerned. As Vic said, that 10% in wind channel for next year, that could be telling as far as Red Bull's concerned. Stay with us. We'll take a quick weather break. We'll be back at the top there.